Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Magical Learning Podcast for this week. As you can see, we've got a guest on this week, and we'll get to them very shortly. But first, we've got to check in with the regular team to see what's been going on. So we'll start with you, John. John, you were on first. Tell us about what's going on with your week.
It's been a fairly cruisy week, which has been really good. It's bloody cold here in Canberra, though. I don't know when summer's supposed to start, but yeah, we'll get there. Otherwise, it's been good.
That's it's the curse of Canberra there, John.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it
Yeah,
sucks.
yeah. No, it's we've been having the same in Melbourne. We've had some sort of weird Antarctic blast that's hit us. And so we were having this beautiful summer, and now it's become freezing again. So thank you to Antarctica. We're going to throw over here to Danette. Danette, how are you going this week?
Yeah, great, Jez. I've actually had the whole week at home. And because of that, yesterday morning, I was talking to a friend about 6 o'clock in the morning, looked outside, and there was a mama kangaroo with a baby Joey just outside the back door. So we took some photos, which we will share with the podcast description because it was so beautiful. How cool is that?
I feel that's amazing, and I feel you're painting a strangely stereotypical view of what Australia is like for Brent here. Um, Graham, how's your week going?
Hey Jez, hey everyone. Yeah, my week's been pretty good. In addition to sharing the photos, I think we might also share a couple of recipes for marinated kangaroo steaks.
Not.
If that's okay. Something of a delicacy.
Brent, how are you going this week? How's things? Brent Forrester, our guest.
This is great. And this is officially the most Australian thing that's ever happened to me. I fully expect all three of you to just to break out a bowl of Vegemite and sing a Men at Work song, make me feel exactly. Yeah, it's
Here we
great.
go.
I'm in California, and I'm delighted that we're connecting across the entire earth here. And I can't wait to talk about all things, creative. I'm in the middle of writing a pilot, and I'm getting up every day at 6 a.m. I work out in the gym at 6:45 with a group of people, and then shower and start writing at 8 every day. So this is a process that I picked up from another writer who lives down the street, a guy named Eric Roth. He wrote Forrest Gump, and he's 80 something now, still writing. He just wrote Killers of the Flower Moon for Leonardo DiCaprio. This dude is unstoppable. He works every day from 7:30 until 11:30. So I'm trying to basically replicate the work ethic of a very old, very successful man in my neighborhood.
Well, Brent, I mean, that sounds amazing. I think this is something that you really do well, is understand how to take. Well, there we go. We've got Vegemite live on screen as well there for Brent. Um, but Brent, I think you're very good at sort of taking comedy seriously, but also having fun. Like you're good at understanding many parts about it, and we'll get into that as well in writing as well. But Brent, there'll be people that sort of may have seen your name around, but do you want to give people a little bit about your background and tell us a little bit about where this writing a pilot even comes from?
So I started out in elementary school. My mom wouldn't allow television in the house, and so all I had were books for entertainment. And as a result, in public school, I was reading more than the other kids. And when it came time to write short stories, I was a little better than other kids. In 8th grade, I won a short story contest. I got $50, and I decided I'm going to be a professional writer. So that's my origin story. I took all the writing courses that I could through college, graduated, and had every ambition of being a short story writer. It was then that I discovered that the economy of short story writing is not exactly robust, at least out here. And so I pivoted. I thought, well, can I take my writing training and do any other kind of writing? I had an internship as a journalist that went nowhere. I took a course in soap opera writing. I would have become a soap opera writer had I had any connections there, but I didn't, thank God. I had a guy I went to high school with. His mom was a television writer. And so I said to her, how do you become a TV writer? I got very lucky because my friend's mom was Susan Harris, who had created a show called The Golden Girls. And this became my first mentor in TV. And so I, came into the business in the dying era of the American sitcom in 1993. the top 40 shows on American TV, 30 of those were sitcoms where you would literally hear an audience laughing, like that kind of what we call multicam comedy. So I entered into the TV business there, and then I got very lucky. I lucked into a series of TV writing jobs with elite writers. The first was on a sketch show called The Ben Stiller Show with an unknown actor named Ben Stiller, who went on to fame. At the time, he was nobody. I basically entered the LA underground comedy scene, which was who was staffing and acting on that show. Bob Odenkirk, who later becomes Saul on Better Call Saul, Janine Garofalo, David Cross, Judd Apatow was our showrunner. From there, again, with incredible luck, we were canceled after 12 episodes, but the writing staff won an Emmy for best writing. So I had an Emmy at 26 years old. With that, I got a job on a little cartoon show called The Simpsons in season 5 of that show. So I was a writer there, seasons 5, 6, and 7. That's really where I learned to write comedy. That was like getting a PhD in comedy writing. Every writer there, except for me, was a graduate of Harvard University. They were on the humor magazine, the Harvard Lampoon. So this was just the hotshot geniuses and me. I had gone to a different Ivy League school called Columbia. So although we were all white men, I was the diversity hire that year because I went to Columbia, not Harvard. Now, they've since corrected that. The television industry in America is wonderfully diverse now. It was not in 1995 or whatever when I was there. I went on from The Simpsons, a TV show called King of the Hill, an animated show out here, was a credit. Did a bunch of punch up for movies in the kind of Austin Powers, Ace Ventura era of movies. I was able to turn my Simpsons credit into punch up work. And then I came back to TV for a startup show with another Simpsons writer that I knew named Greg Daniels. His show was called The Office. That show, incredibly, again, I lucked into a show that went on to do well. So I was there for 7 seasons, and I ran the writer's room in that show in the final season. So I rose to like a leadership position, leading writers. And since then, that's all I've done. Just run writers' rooms for other people's shows. My old friend Judd Apatow had a show called Love. I ran the writers' room there. Greg Daniels, again, the creator of The Office, had Space Force, Upload, People of Earth. He had me run the writers' room on all those shows. I even did a show for Rebel Wilson out here called Super Fun Night. I ran the writers' room there. So leading teams of writers is basically my job now, as well as trying to create my own show, which remains the brass ring that I have never grasped. I have never created my own show. And amazingly, that gives me the biggest chip on my shoulder of all time. I feel as unfulfilled and unvalidated as any young artist listening to this as I try to do the one thing I haven't done, which is sell and create my own show. That's where I am now.
Well, Brent, I mean, what an amazing backstory there, and I'm sure anybody that is like listening to this will be able to connect to at least some point of that. I know myself, there was many entry points there. Even was Love the one with Paul Rust? Is that
Yes.
Yeah. I like that. That show was really fun. Yeah, great show.
That show's great. I mean, that show, we really pushed what you might call naturalism in that show. So if you work with comedy writers, you start to notice that the real tastemakers are attracted to very realistic drama in their comedy. The Office aspired to that. You know, it was a realistic show. And on Love, we pushed it as far as I've ever gone in television, where it really feels like a painful psychodrama through much of it. And yet it's all comic actors at the top of their game under the direction of the great Judd Apatow, who in some ways is like the king of naturalistic comedy.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we recommend people go check that out. Well, I think we've got a lot of questions. The topic today you recommended was just sort of a bit of a broad topic about creativity, comedy, and sort of some of the shows you've worked on. So we're going to just be sort of diving into a bit of a sort of random assortment. And Brent, we're excited to see sort of where we go. So I'll start with Danette, because Danette's questions typically tee us up. So Danette, do you want to talk about your questions and sort of why you chose them?
Brent, great to see you. Love that bio. That was awesome. So my first question is, can you share the creative process that is used, John, to write things like The Simpsons, The Office, etc.? Because I reckon we've got some listeners and viewers who might be aspiring to doing something like that. Thank you.
Sure. Well, all American television is written in rooms where groups of writing comedy. The drama shows, the writers will go off more individually, but in comedies, we're always in a group. Part of that is that comedy is so slippery and hard to capture. It's so subjective, so nuanced, that it is very helpful to be pitching in a room of people and hearing live whether something is funny, having people bounce it back to you. That dynamic is very useful. So typically on an American TV comedy, we'll start in the first couple of weeks just brainstorming episodes. We'll come back from the summer typically, and the room will come together. All right, let's talk about stories. So if it's The Office, we'll say, who's got a story idea? I've got one for Dwight. How about this? What if Phyllis and Stanley opened up a laundromat? How about that? What if Michael Scott gets LASIK? Okay, so we're just throwing ideas out. Some of them are ideas specifically for characters. Often we're talking about things that have happened to us and how they might become stories. So it's a very broad brainstorming process in the first couple of weeks. Then at a certain point, we have to drill down and do what we call breaking stories. Breaking a story is the opposite of what it sounds like. It's constructing a story. You say, okay, Michael gets LASIK. What would that be? What are the stakes? What are the act breaks? What is the action? What are the scenes? We're building the story. And we will typically go through a very rapid period of oral storytelling, where whoever came up with this idea will try to tell the story out loud. They will fail inevitably to do it well enough. They'll be sent into an office with another writer to work on it some more. They'll come back and forth, back and forth. After a while, the story begins to gain structure, and we put it up on cards. This is cards here. That's the cards for a pilot I'm working on. Every one of those cards is a scene, and we can kind of move them around. I like a very few words on a card. Irma complains to Gary and gets big dogged. That's 7 words there. You can't quite tell what that is, but it's shorthand for a scene that I'm thinking about. The cards allow us to kind of graphically see how many scenes there are. Do we have enough in the A story and the B story? And we begin to structure it that way. From cards, we go to outline, which is just a prose document describing everything that happens. So it'll literally say, interior office, Michael walks in and says, we've got a big meeting today. Okay. Everything that has to happen in the scene, you write in the outline. The outline is the plan for the script. It's really everything but the dialogue. It tells you what must happen in each scene for the story to work, and that allows the writer, when you go to draft, the next step after outline, it allows you to become an actor when you are writing. So I like to say the magic of the writing comes between the outline and the draft for most writers. That's when we go from prose document to essentially a living document where you are, as a writer, playing the characters. What would Michael say here? Think of it, write it down as you hear it in your head. What would Dwight say in response? Think what he would say, write down what you hear in your head. So you're basically becoming an improv actor when you go to draft. In an American TV show, the amount of time you get when you go to do draft, it used to be 4 weeks when I was on The Simpsons. By the time I was on King of the Hill, it seemed to be about 2 weeks. On The Office, I noticed we typically were giving writers about a week to write that draft. So I would send you off on a Friday, you come back on a Monday. You've got Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday again. 9 days, essentially, to go from taking that outline into a draft. You bring that draft back to the room, and all the writers read it, give notes, and now the group rewrites that script. So you basically are a writer for that 9-day week, and then it becomes the property of the staff again, and they take your work and mangle it and destroy it and, ruin your genius. That's generally what the writer feels for the first couple of days. And then through that group process, we rewrite and punch the script. There's also a table read that's fundamental to the comedy writing process. In drama, it's perhaps equally important. the table read is what it sounds like. We take that draft, we bring the actors in, we read it out loud. And that table read is considered really the test of the work. You don't really know whether your thing works until the table read, which feels like putting on a play and has all of that kind of pressure. After the table read, we say, okay, all those lines that we thought were going to work, don't replace those. Some of the stuff worked better than we thought, expand that. The rewrite after the table read is usually 2 or 3 days. Boom, then you film it. It's a very, very fast process. It's a machine-like process with which traditionally, we have generated 22 half-hour scripts in 9 months of television.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that process. I wish I'd have asked it about your pilot. We'll have to talk more about your pilot a little bit
Sure.
later on. That'd be awesome. So my next question, Brent, is can you share some tips about how do you help people collaborate more effectively? Because obviously, through this process, we're saying, oh, yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, that's not so good and stuff like that. So how do you keep these people, which I know would be sensitive to what they're developing,
Yes.
at the table and being willing to continue to collaborate?
That's a great question. And the basic answer for me is positive reinforcement leadership. It took me a long time to get to the obvious way to lead all creative people. And it basically is this. If you guys were my writer's room, and we do writer's rooms on Zoom now, so we might show up like this. What I would do is I would have the script. I would share a screen. You would see the script on the screen. And I would start by inviting you guys to brainstorm with me on whatever we're working on. So, typically in the rewrite process, I would say, okay, let's go to page 3 here. We need a better line here for Michael. When Michael responds to Dwight here, what can we do here that's a better line? Okay. Now, typically the room will go into silence. I'm encouraging basically anything at all at the early process. What could the guy say? Just even a straight line, right? So if I say that, even a straight line, you really can't fail with that, right? It doesn't even have to be a joke. So Michael would say, good morning, everyone. How are we feeling? Oh, that's great. I typed that in. Okay. As soon as I type that in, you get a little pat on the back because your pitch is now validated on the screen. All right. So no matter what you do, you're getting a pat on the back for trying. Pretty quickly, writers being competitive people, somebody else is going to pop up because they want a pat on the back. They'll say something else. I'll type that in. Okay. Now the room is starting to flow because a message has been sent. You can do no wrong in this room. Any attempt to create is congratulated. Okay. Sometimes I'll even say to young writers, look, a characteristic that I admire in artists is courage. And the courage to pitch will always be validated in this room. Okay. And I mean it. You have the courage to say something. Good job. Okay. So you're getting a lot of good job there. Now, what you discover about the creative process very quickly is it's essentially trial and error. There's a lot made of the mystery of comedy writing. How can you teach people to be funny? Immediately, I can tell you the secret of being funny. Just try. Try 10 times to write a funny line, and one of those will be close. One of them might hit it out of the park. Sometimes you just get lucky, but very often you're going to have something close. Then we'll shape that one that's close. So what I'm really looking for is just everybody trying. And when you do, we will get volume. So if we were trying to pitch on that Michael line, I would bet after 5 or 10 minutes with a group this size, we would have an abundance of options, and then we would drill down on 1 or 2 trying to polish it up. I also, at a certain point, like to move on. I'm not going to spend an hour on one line. I have worked with writers who would. Now, that is, in the creative process, a thing to avoid, in my opinion, is just staying too long on one thing. Look, it's probably good enough, move on. If it's not good enough, there might be a problem with the scene. The setup might not work. This scene might not even remain in the script. We don't know. So let's try something, let's do our best, and let's move on. I really like that rapid forward motion. And when you get to fade out, we're going to get to do another draft. So I find it's better to go through a script with some degree of speed rather than get stagnated on one part the way I have experienced with other head writers.
What a great answer. Now I've got to do this. We come from the land down under. Dun, 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 dun. Sorry for the bad
Please, mate, stop. Make it stop.
No, we need that kangaroo to jump into the screen now, I think. Awesome. Well, Graham, we're going to stay on your screen, and I'm going to pass over to you, Graham. What was your question? And ask away.
So my question, Brent, was I seem to be sort of semi-hyper focused on alien intelligence at the moment, or AI, and curious about your thoughts on what role you see AI, because I think from a purely tech perspective, it's probably entirely possible for it to write comedy today. That just depresses me so much. What's your take on where we're headed in that respect? And if you watched a show in say 7.5 years' time that somebody else had produced, and it was a 30-minute comedy thing, and it made you laugh a lot, and then you found out that it had been entirely produced by AI, would you feel robbed?
These are both great questions. I have my thoughts on AI at the moment. I have not really used it much, and I really don't know any writers who are leaning on it very heavily. Maybe it's just because of our training that we simply continue to do what we've always done, the way we've always done it. But I find myself not much drawn to utilizing it. I also have a thought. Again, this is very self-serving, but this is my feeling about why AI may struggle to replace artists and writers. The first thing that I learned about comedy writing from my mentor, Susan Harris of the Golden Girls, she said, write about what is difficult for you, even painful, and trust that it will come out funny. And this has been the secret for me always for writing comedy. Now, in order to write about what is painful, you have to feel pain, and AI cannot do that. So I think it's limited by nature in that sense. I also find that in the highly competitive world of entertainment writing that I'm in, we all work very, very hard trying to write pilots and write comedy monologues and whatever we're hired to do, and we struggle to do it well. I think that the nuances of comedy, the way that that art can actually reflect what people are feeling in the moment, it strikes me as a very human thing to do. I kind of don't understand how AI would even know if it hit it right. Only a person really knows if something is relevant. I guess I'm speaking up very much in defense of the subtle feelings that humans have that differentiate mediocre work from very good work. And it's really only the very good work that gets you anywhere. There are hundreds and hundreds of writers that submit their spec scripts to be staffed on a TV show whenever a new TV show is created. So my friend Mike Schur, he did a show on Netflix recently. He got 750 scripts submitted to him for 4 writing spots, okay? Now, most of those scripts are probably decent. A few are going to break through into great. Only the ones that break through into great are going to get anybody hired. What is the difference between those pretty good scripts by very good writers and the great ones? It's going to be nuances of intuition. It's going to be capturing the zeitgeist. That is something I just don't see AI doing, the zeitgeist. Zeitgeist, a German term meaning time ghost. Poltergeist, geist is ghost, zeit is time, time ghost, the spirit of the time. Can you capture the spirit of the time? So I think humans are probably better off doing that. That may be, as I say, self-serving, but that's what I'm hoping. Now, the second question, if I read something and discovered that it had been written by AI, I think it's very possible I would be disappointed with it. I'll tell you a reason I think this. I recently saw someone forwarded me a conversation, a dialogue between Alan Watts and Ram Dass. Okay, these are 2 spiritual masters, right? Who did not ever have this conversation. AI just generated what it thought might be the dialogue there. Okay, I'm very interested in Ram Dass and Alan Watts. I have no interest in this conversation. You couldn't force me to listen to this baloney that never happened, because the humans that I'm interested in didn't actually participate in it. And I think I would feel the same if I were moved by a work of writing. I very often feel, when I love something, some work of art, I feel the person behind it. And I go, oh my God, there's someone back there trying to say something to me. To discover that there is no one back there trying to say something to me is probably a deal breaker. Again, this is my argument in defense of the humans against the robots.
If we send you a pallet load, a crate, can we get you to come back and eat a teaspoon of Vegemite live on an ML podcast?
Absolutely, for sure. There's nothing I like more than connecting with other artists and talking about whatever art we're working on. Increasingly, it becomes the way that I feel motivated and connected to the meaning of creativity. And I have a theory about this that I've just been evolving this week. I've noticed out here in the US that the television industry has contracted. It kind of blew up with all the streamers, and it seemed like there was just work for everybody. And now there was the pandemic, there was the writer's strike, there was the actor's strike, and the streamers all kind of realized they didn't need to buy and make as much material. They could go get a show from Korea, or they could go buy a show that had gone off the air in 1982. So the demand for production contracted, and there's so many out of work writers now. You go to a meeting at the Writers Guild, our union. They have a building, and you meet 100 unemployed writers there. The interesting thing is, all of those 100 writers are writing. Whether they're paid or not, the writers are writing, and this is really moving to me, and makes me think that the meaning of creativity still exists, whether it creates money, whether it even gets made or not. There's something very, very important and valuable about it. So that quest, what is it that we're all trying so desperately hard to do? And why are we so interested in doing it, even if it makes us no money at all, is something I'm interested in. And so, yes, anytime you invite me to talk about art, I'm available.
Awesome. Thank you, Graham. And John, I'll throw over to you. What was your question here?
Well, firstly, I mean, we just said to Brent, come on and eat a teaspoon of Vegemite. Who does that? We don't do it. Why would we? Yeah. So why would we put that through to someone else? They're going to hate it in a Vegemite spoon. Spread it on toast.
Yes.
And look, Brent, I think you've answered my question in Danette's second question around, how do you get people focused and whilst allowing that freedom? And you talked about the positive reinforcement and you like to move on fairly quickly. So let me ask something slightly different. In your intro, you were talking about, I got lucky because I worked on this show, and then I got lucky, and then I got lucky, and then I got lucky.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a quote that says, the harder I work, the luckier I get.
Mm-hmm.
How
Mm-hmm.
true or not is that? Do you believe that is? And especially with how lucky you got.
Oh, I think it's 100% true. It is. I'm minimizing my achievements, but
Yeah.
when I talk about my mentor, Susan Harris, she was the mom of a guy I went to high school with. This guy had 10 friends who wanted careers in television. None of them got hired by Susan Harris. Only I did. And it was largely because I listened very closely to what she said, and I used that connection really only once. Susan said, write about what's difficult for you, even painful, and trust it will come out. And she said that in response to a spec script that I had written and showed her that was an absolute failure. It was terrible. She said to me, Brent, silly isn't funny. Oh, my whole spec script was just silliness masquerading as comedy. I listened very, very closely to her, and I took a year to write another spec script before I showed her one. And I was working, long hours. I had a job as a waiter, and then I would take 3 days off to write, spec TV episodes. And I did that for a year. Most of the people I knew didn't have that level of work ethic. And that I think in the beginning was certainly what worked for me. Yeah, most people that are successful in the entertainment industry tend to have a very strong work ethic. Some are just crazy geniuses, but most, I think sweat will get you there more often than talent, for sure. There's 4 traits that I say I see most often in successful artists: initiative, courage, work ethic, and kindness. Initiative is just when you go, I could put on a play. I could put on a play. Okay. Do you do it? The people who do it have initiative, and it's this crazy power that if you simply do the thing that you think about doing, you eliminate 90% of the competition,
Yeah.
right? Courage, as I mentioned, the courage to put yourself out there, to try to express yourself, to reveal what you're actually thinking and feeling, including your own insecurities, and to share your work. To have people read your stuff takes courage. Work ethic is the one you're hitting on, and then the 4th one, kindness. Kindness is a little bit of an aspirational value that I put on there because I sort of want that to be a characteristic of successful people, but it's not entirely aspirational. I think it's true. I think that for me, kindness has been rewarded. Just being generous to other people, they remember it. And, in the arts, broadly speaking, we're talking about humans and their feelings, and we respond to people who are kind. So I put it in there as my 4th quality in successful people, along with the work ethic that you're talking about.
Yeah, cool. And I guess if you're writing about difficult and painful things, that kindness needs to be there because you're writing about difficult and painful things, and other
Yes.
people are doing the same. So how much therapy have you had to go through? Or is that your therapy?
Oh God, no. Therapy is the best. There's a writer, Mindy Kaling was a writer actor from The Office. We wrote a whole screenplay together, and every writing session was immediately after her therapy sessions, and it was amazing. It was such a testimony for psychotherapy. I love psychoanalysis, and I think that writing and acting both have strong connections to the psychoanalytic process. I mean, I feel like James Dean and those guys, they were all using the Stanislavski method, which is essentially a psychoanalytic process. For me, I do get a lot from Dr. Arthur Kovacs of Santa Monica, who helps me plumb my inner world. But I'm also noticing that the process of writing a pilot now has a psychoanalytic component. I'm writing a pilot, I call it Bank. It's the office in a Wells Fargo. That's a bank out here. And the bank manager, after 3 weeks of writing this pilot, I suddenly realized that the bank manager was essentially my dad. And that's what was causing me to
Wow.
be so aggressively mocking of this character. Was I was working out something I was mad at my dad about. When I realized that, and I realized that the young bank teller was essentially me as a kid, I thought, can I show kindness towards my father? Can I be more forgiving and self analytical in the writing of these things? So the two definitely go hand in
Yeah.
hand. Psychoanalysis and art are very well linked, I think, when the writing's going well.
Yeah. No, cool. All right. Thank you, Brent.
So from our last chat, which is we've had a conversation on the Adapt with Jeanette FM podcast, which people will be able to check out. I think around the time this is coming out. I think both of these episodes are going to come out around the same time. But we were having a chat sort of after that, and one of the traits that I sort of really admired when we were talking is about your ability to kind of see a diamond in the rough. And we were talking a little bit about this before with putting all the ideas out there and stuff like this. But I think that what you have in that is a great skill, because I've just sort of, I guess this year I've been sort of thinking about the idea that it's much easier to be a critic than it is to find the brilliance in something. Like, it's easy for anybody to see a kid's drawing and go, this is horribly done.
Yeah.
But it takes someone who's really well versed in art to be like, oh, this actually reminds me of a Rembrandt thing. You have to have like a good sophistication to be able to extract what's good out of something that's objectively quite bad in many ways. I guess, and I think that that's a great trait. And I put in this question, I think it's additive as a trait because it adds to the species. If more people acted like this, I think we would end up with more better ideas. And so I guess I was just wondering, did you have any good examples of like where this has worked, and also, is this something that you work on as a skill, or is it something that you find sort of natural? Because I also think of you in some ways as a bit of walking fun. Like, you're kind of like just fun, like it's like you're a speaker system that's generating sort of fun. So anyway, yeah.
Thank you. I have that reputation as a leader. People are excited to work with me because they know that they're going to get that kind of encouragement and validation early on. I do it intuitively, instinctively, and I think it's just me recognizing what I want and need as a creator. When I teach a class, the first part of the writing process is an oral pitching stage. So, I teach writing a pilot, and I say step one is the elevator pitch. Just in a few sentences, what's this pilot you're working on? Okay. And I insist that every writer find another writer and pitch to them, and they pitch back to you. Now, I have a rule. When someone pitches to you and you're going to respond, the first thing you say when you respond is, "What I love about your pitch is this." And you can always find something that you love about it, even in the potential. It is so valuable for the writer to hear this first, even if they know that Professor Brenty here commanded everyone to say what they love about it. It doesn't matter. We still want to hear that, and we need to hear that. Now, if you sell a television show to NBC, and you go, that's an American TV network, right? And you go to through the development process. What the executives are going to do is not that. The executives are going to think, I'm a very smart executive. I'm trying to protect my job. I've got to make sure that Brent doesn't fail in this writing process. So when he pitches to me, the first thing I'm going to say is, how it could go wrong is this, this, and this. What's not working is this, this, and this. And I really think that I'm doing a good job by preventing you from failing in 9 different ways. It's absolutely counterproductive because suddenly my creative energy is collapsed. I've lost my confidence. My imagination goes to pieces. You may have heard me say this before, but I think that the creative process very often involves 2 different parts of the brain. One is the generative part, where you're coming up with ideas, you're pitching with ideas, you feel you're on a roll, you're excited, you're envisioning. That's the fun part for most people, okay? And then the second part is the critical part, where you say, okay, we just generated ideas for half an hour. Here's 15 different ideas. Which of these is the best idea? Which of these ideas has been done before? Now we're using the critical mind. Which of these is unoriginal? Which of these is silly? Which of these is offensive? Okay. We've got to ask ourselves that. Was there something in there that we didn't think about? Oh my God, that could offend somebody. Okay. That's the critical mind. If you try to employ the critical mind while you're generating, you're paralyzed. Okay. The generative power is so powerful. I think of it like a genie, like Robin Williams in Aladdin. It's like boom, right? The imagination. But the genie, powerful as it is, will go back in the bottle with criticism. The critical mind will take that power and boom, put it right back in. So the main thing that I try to do is get that genie going for as long as we're going to do it, then stop. Now let's use the critical mind and be intellectual and just separate the 2 parts out. Most students of anything, of the arts, young people who've come out of university, they're going to have a very overdeveloped critical side because most of what they're doing is comparative literature. Compare this to that. Pick apart this. That's critical thinking. What they have not been trained to do is to generate. And so they're like a muscle man who comes in with one weak muscle developing, that's the generative side, and one strong one, the critical one. And so when they go to create, this one just pounds away at this one. And that's why you got to get into my room where I'm like, this part's not working. We're just doing this. We're just doing this all day, and we generate, before we criticize. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, that's amazing. It's like rehab kind of to some degree, like when you think of like a muscle. Yeah, great. I love that. Well, let's get into, I think we could probably got time for one more question and we'll sort of get into wrap up. Brent, this has been an amazing conversation. Let's get into Kanika's question here. And she's written in, any art form involves some level of insecurity. How do you get past that sense of imposter syndrome where you are?
Mm-hmm. Everybody has it forever. Okay, so the fact that you have that, pat yourself on the back, you're an artist. Welcome. Okay. What you're doing as an artist, whether you are a writer, an actor, a filmmaker, you are part of a small tribe on planet Earth. You are special. You have seen a gift in yourself. That is why you are creating. Nobody puts the time into creating things if they have not seen a gift in themselves. The very fact that you are listening to me now means you're gifted. You would not be interested in what I'm saying if you had not seen a gift in yourself. That gift is real. Okay. You never need to doubt that. And I hope you artists who are listening now, I hope you will pursue your art until the day you die. It's emotional for me because I'm you. You're me. We know this, and others do not. My dad's a doctor. He's very smart. He's very successful. He has no idea how to do what you do, which is to create. Okay, so you're special. But with that specialness does come insecurity because it's a slippery process. We try to create. We get very excited. We think, oh my God, this is brilliant. We write it down. We show it to somebody. It doesn't work exactly the way we thought. That's very, very common. That's why we write in groups. That's why we have multiple drafts, because in a subjective medium, you can't always hit it cleanly every single time. You embrace that, understand it. You know, if you work your art long enough, you become very comfortable and very familiar with this surreal process of going, this idea is the greatest idea I've ever had in my life. Trying it out and it either failing utterly or not quite being there, or sometimes yes being there. You don't quite know which it's going to be. Over time, you become comfortable with the fact that in a subjective medium, it's sometimes going to be one, sometimes going to be the other, and you never really quite know. So how do you get over the insecurity? How do you maintain the confidence? I mean, for my process, what I do is when I'm working on a project like I am now, I set the hours that I'm going to work. So I'm really into the early hours right now. I'm trying to work like 8 a.m. until noon, 4 hours a day writing. That's a long amount of time for most writers. We get exhausted after 4 hours. So I'm just going to do 4 hours with focus. Now, how good will the work be in those 4 hours? I don't know. And I don't even take it personally. I'm just going to put in the hours. Now, if you do put in 4 hours, some good stuff is going to happen inevitably. No matter how mediocre you feel during that period, if you work for some period of time, come back to it the next day, there's going to be something in there that's of value. So the main thing that I rely on actually is the process and setting aside the hours. If you do that, you are going to get somewhere. Whether you feel like you are in the moment or not is less relevant than simply setting aside the hours. And, like John was saying, the sweat equity, the work ethic, that will get you there. If you simply work on something for some period of time, you're generally going to get there. I like it for young writers, especially, to work on short material. So, for example, if you're trying to be a comedy writer, I really suggest you start with sketch before you go to, say, a half-hour pilot. It's much easier to write something of quality that's short than something that's 30 pages, 4 pages versus 30 pages. 3 characters in a scene versus 8 characters in a story. And if you work on shorter stuff, the chances that you will create something up to your standard of quality and get your validation is much higher. You'll get there much quicker. When you do, then the confidence will come, and over time, your sense memory of having tried and succeeded will cause you to remember, yes, I can do this. Yes, I can get there. So anyway, stick in there, young writer. You're onto something by asking the question at all.
That's great. Well, Brent, what a great message to sort of leave people with the questions here. But we've got to grab some final thoughts from everybody. So I might start with Danette here. Danette, did you have any final thoughts about today's conversation?
Yeah, what a great conversation yet again. I love these conversations, Brent. And I really like that bit about separating the generative process from the critic process, to be able to just, free flow and then let's refine it. But don't try and combine them, because I suspect, and it's definitely happened to me, once that critic comes in, it just shuts down so many potential great ideas. So thank you for sharing that. I really like the last little bit that you shared too, because you just basically mentored a heap of people who are starting out thinking about, how do I do this? And you've made it simple. And that's awesome for the next generation. And I hope you share the course that you have created, because we definitely love to promote that because I reckon there's going to be a heap of creative people who'd love to know what you know. So
I love it. I started teaching a class in the pandemic when everything shut down, and I had, like everybody, this deathbed moment of what are we doing on the planet. The teaching is very personal for me. It's in some ways the most creatively satisfying thing I do. You can always find me, brentforrester.com. Go there and I'll send an email to you whenever I'm doing a class. I teach a class on pilot writing generally twice a year, and time permitting, I'll do another couple of classes on just comedy science, which is one of my favorite things.
thank you so much.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for that. And look, I that was a course I was looking at today. Actually, I went back on the website. I'm like, that sounds exactly up my alley. Is joke science right there and comedy science. I'm
Right.
going to go to Graham. Graham, did you have any final thoughts on today's conversation?
Yeah, I have a lot. Not surprisingly. So, Brent, fantastic session, lovely conversation.
Thank you.
When are you coming to Australia? Because I want to sort of buy lunch and sit down for about 16 weeks.
Hey,
And,
I
yeah.
can't wait, man. The comedians and writers that I've met from Australia are so freaking good. You guys are sitting on a volcano of talent there, as far as I can tell. And yeah, it's a dream of mine to come there and connect with you guys. So yes, get the warm up the kangaroo burgers because I'm coming.
Told. I think there's one theory behind the explosion of creative genius in Australia is it comes from spending much of your waking, well, in fact, even sleeping hours, but much of your time trying to avoid the 164 things that will kill you.
Sure.
That's just a theory. I like the when you were talking, and this is following up one of John's questions about hard work, and I sort of turned it around because there's so much wrong with my head. But I like the idea of a framework which
Mhm.
sort of goes against creativity. But I just turned it into wick, and I thought, well, your creative candle won't burn or it won't light if you don't have a wick, and wick would be your work ethic,
Mhm.
um, the initiative,
Mhm.
courage, and kindness.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
there you go. But great conversation. Thank you.
Yes.
Really enjoyed it.
Thanks.
Love it, love it. Thanks for that, Graham. And nice little nice little acronym. We love that. John, did you have any final thoughts today?
Yeah, look, Brent, this has been fantastic. One of the beauties of this podcast is actually hearing from amazing people such as yourself who, have done amazing things that some of us just would love to have a fifth or a tenth of, that within us. So, no, look, thank you. I mean, for me, the couple of things that came out was you talked about the process, but following a process and trusting a process and setting aside those hours. So those, whether it's your 4 hours of a morning or whether it's more or less, it doesn't matter, but
Mhm.
have a process, put in the hours and just try.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. Yeah, you can trust the process. And, another principle to throw in there, I really like teamwork. I think
Yep.
that as artists, especially as writers, we can get quite isolated. Writing is one of those art forms where we go off and do it. And that's great because that's the kind of people we are. We like to perfect stuff before we share. But I do think that the sharing process is vital. And teams beat individuals. If you can even have a writing club, a group that gets together on Zoom. I've noticed those are so effective for writers. It gets your feedback, it gets you your deadlines, it gets you your accountability. So I think building community through your art is another vital tool for everybody to employ.
And another great tip for aspiring writers to build that community. So
If you
thank
can,
you.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, tough.
Yeah. Love that, John, and great insights today. Thanks, team. Great stuff. And what I loved about this conversation, Brent, was the suggestion of saying what I love about this as a recommendation tool. I also was going to say, Brent, I've had one or two friends work on this Australian soap opera called Neighbours, which is like one of these long-running Australian soap operas. So maybe if you ever wanted to ever dip your toes into a soap opera writing, Australian soap operas could be the way to go.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I just want to say, Brent, thank you so much. Once again, an amazing convo. Did you have any final thoughts you wanted to leave people with?
No, I mean, I'm just excited to use technology to connect with other creative people on literally the other side of the globe. I will never tire of whatever it is you're doing here. So thank you guys for inviting me in. It's been absolutely a blast. And please invite me back anytime you want me.
Great. Well, Brent, be careful what you wish for, mate, because you'll be back on before you know it. No, Brent, this has been a fantastic conversation, team. Great questions. Thank you to everybody that's been listening and sharing. The channel's growing like gangbusters. And to everybody that's listens, have a magical week.